when I came in 5 years ago to this campus, like I knew this was something that was going to be at the top of my list of things we were going to do on this campus, and just was able to share my experiences. And I'll be honest, it changed my entire trajectory. Leaning into inclusion and Special Olympics and Unified Champions. And I wanted them to see how it impacted me in my career and how it can impact our campus. And again, not just students, but staff see the same thing. And there's a lot of things that we don't know, that we don't see, because we don't get to interact with those students as often as we do with general education students. Again, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't have any pushback. People that just had questions. That's just like, how does this work? Nobody has time. I don't have time. You don't have time. Teachers don't have time. But we make time because it's what's best for kids.
Welcome to TEPSA Talk, the podcast where leaders inspire, share, and grow together. TEPSA is dedicated to celebrating the incredible work happening in education. Each episode, we dive into meaningful conversations with leaders, change makers, and innovators who are shaping the future of our schools. Whether you're looking for fresh ideas, encouragement, or a little spark to fuel your passion, TEPSA Talk is here for you. Imagine tuning in to hear how leaders are revolutionizing their schools, tackling challenges head-on, and fostering a culture of collaboration. Grab a coffee, hit play, and let's grow together. Welcome to TEPSA Talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TEPSA Talk podcast. I'm your host, Todd Nesloney, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled each week to bring you different guests from around the world, and today we have one of our TEPSA leaders, and that is Mr. Kevin Hunter. Kevin, introduce yourself for everybody listening or watching.
Good morning, everybody. Kevin Hunter. I'm the principal at Overton Ray Elementary in Burke-Burnett, Texas, Region 9, North Texas area.
And always one of the most stylishly dressed administrators we have. For those of you who are just listening to the podcast and not watching, he's in another amazing suit, always in something fun and fancy. And so I got to ask, before we even dive into anything else, like, when did that become something you were like, this is part of who I am and how I'm going to dress and be and act?
So I started out my educational career in secondary. Secondary doesn't necessarily lend itself to dressing up as much. I spent my last 4 years in the classroom in elementary and just fell in love with it. I just like the fun. I always say I get to be Peter Pan. I don't have to grow up. I get to wear the crazy suits. Kids love it. It's just fun. It really is my personality that I don't feel like in secondary came out as much as it does in the elementary realm.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Kevin, let's talk a little bit about your path and your career in education. And so, you did a lot in secondary, and then at some point, during your career, you decided that, you know what, I think school leadership might be in my path. Was that something you just kind of came to the realization of? Were you pushed by someone else to consider it? How did that work for you?
So I feel like for me, it's just always been, I've kind of gone where I've been called. As a teacher and as a coach starting out, I always said I never want to be in administration. I'm happy where I want to be. I still love the classroom, but I love the classroom and thought that is not for me. And then opportunities arose to become an assistant principal at the middle school level. Thought about it, prayed about it, and it was the right move for me. And I said, I will never be a principal. This is the end of the road for me. I love being an assistant principal. I love dealing with the student side of it. And then my current position right now came open, and I'll be honest with you, I was not ready for this position, but everyone told me you'll never be ready for that position until you actually do it. I knew this is the age level I wanted to be, so I had to at least give it a shot. And 5 years later, I'm still here.
There you go. Well, you just shared you've been in this for 5 years as the head of the campus. And so in thinking of people who are listening and needing a word of advice or needing a lesson that you've learned that you would share with others, what is something you'd share with others who are new to this position or considering stepping into leadership?
So I think it always looks like such a big job. And like I said, you never think that you're actually ready for it. I came into a situation where there was already an assistant principal in place. And I think that's where I leaned into my assistant principal who had already been here, kind of knew how things worked. We had a conversation as soon as I was hired to make sure we were on the same page. And I really leaned into her in getting things going. And then once I kind of got things going, There were other things where you have to lean into your instructional specialists, and you really have to depend on your teachers, because there's a lot of days that, I'm caught up in doing the administrative side, and I don't get out as much as I'd like to. And I really have a staff that I can depend on, that I know that quality instruction is going on in classrooms. And I don't worry about that going on, because it is a great staff, and, you have to have the right people in the right places, but you can't be afraid to delegate. You can't do everything. And I think that's the thing you have to remember. And I also say you kind of have to prioritize. There's things that have to get done. There's things that will get done eventually. And there's things that you'd like to get done, but if they don't, that's okay too. You just have to prioritize.
And I think that's such good advice, because when I think of my own path, that was such a difficult lesson for me to learn. Because when you're in the classroom, you're in full control and you have all of that. But becoming an administrator, learning the power of delegation and listening and leaning on your people is such great advice. And so, at some point too, you're now serving as a region leader with TEPSA. And so when did that become on your radar and you thought, let me add one more thing to my plate?
So again, it's just like, I feel like, I'm always praying and looking for opportunities. And this was just another opportunity. I see the greatness that is in Region 9 that just needed a little shove. I think it's a great region. It's kind of, its own thing, because we're so spread out, so many rural areas. It's really hard to get people together, but that's what I've really tried to focus on, is bringing all these people together to collaborate, because despite big, small, whatever, we're all mainly going through the same things on a daily basis. So it was just an opportunity for me to step up into a leadership role. And then, even with opportunities coming up, like, looking for state position, I think it's something that I'm going to look forward to as well. Because again, the opportunity's there, and I just don't like saying no to opportunities. It may not be the right one, but I'm never going to say no whenever it's presented to me.
I love that. Well, Kevin, something that you are also passionate about and that your school is doing some pretty cool things about is inclusion. And so talk to me a little bit about your journey with that and kind of when that became something that became really important and personal to you.
Sure. So I remember when I was in school, a lot of times your special needs students, we never interacted with any special needs students. It was a lot of self-contained for an entire day, where there was no interaction there. And I just always never understood that. I didn't understand why they didn't get to be a part of everything else. And I always just wondered why. And then kind of going through my educational career, I just found myself drawn to students with special needs who just need a little extra help. It was just something I became very passionate about. I never taught special ed. I'm not special ed certified. It's just something that I've just always been drawn to. And then I was blessed when I moved into administration on my campus. We had a teacher who had worked for Special Olympics Texas, and who really was passionate about the Unified Champions program, which is a branch of the Special Olympics, which is on campus, and got involved with that and just saw the impact that can have. And it kind of broadened my way of thinking, that it's not just about how we can help students with special needs, but the impact that it had on our general education students in creating those bonds with students they normally wouldn't get to interact with.
I love that. And I think you make such a good point there, of that many of us listening to this conversation may remember a time when there was just clear separation. And even sometimes now there is. And so taking that initiative to say, you know what, every kid deserves to have this connection, this collaboration. And so what are some things that your school is doing to kind of enhance and encourage more inclusion?
So, like I said, we are a Unified Champions campus. So we every week we have buddy groups that a gen ed student and a special education student, they get together. A lot of times it's games. It is Special Olympics kind of sports related, but a lot of times we just have Christmas parties together. Just a lot of different things, just painting pumpkins last week, just doing a lot of things together. Again, it's just the inclusion thing. It doesn't have to be academic related. It doesn't have to be sports related. Again, we're just trying to create relationships, and we want to foster those relationships all the way through school, not just on our campus, but when they move on to middle school and when they go on to high school. That, we've had students that their parents have said, my kid has never been invited to a birthday party before, and they're getting invited now. They're being included outside of the school building, and just seeing those types of things happen. It's just really amazing. The stuff that we're kind of trying to create here gets carried on into the real world.
Love that so much. And I think of this in my own experience as a teacher and trying to find ways to have my students connect with other groups like that. And I'll never forget the life skills group that we had and how we found time to get in there and have my kids work with them. And it was such a powerful experience to see them connect and build those relationships. So, I know that other administrators might be listening to this and thinking, I love this idea, Kevin, but I don't know if my staff is ready. Like, I may have some people on staff who are like, I don't know, I don't have the time for that, or I'm not ready for that myself, or anything like that. How do you encourage staff to take this on and be a part of this and not have so much pushback in case there was any?
So when I came in 5 years ago to this campus, like I knew this was something that was going to be at the top of my list of things we were going to do on this campus, and just was able to share my experiences. And I'll be honest, it changed my entire trajectory, leaning into inclusion and Special Olympics and Unified Champions. And I wanted them to see how it impacted me in my career and how it can impact our campus. And again, not just students, but staff see the same thing. And there's a lot of things that we don't know, that we don't see, because we don't get to interact with those students as often as we do with general education students. So again, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't have any pushback. I had a lot of people that just had questions. That's just like, how does this work? And nobody has time. I don't have time. You don't have time. Teachers don't have time, but we make time because it's what's best for kids.
Yeah.
I have a great sponsor, our Unified program, who works tirelessly to make sure they have those opportunities to take them bowling, to take them on field trips, to go to STEM activities. We have a basketball competition. We get to go interact with other schools. It's just an amazing program. And what I would tell administrators too, it doesn't cost you anything. When you go to your central admin and say, we'd like to try this, when they say, okay, how much does it cost? You can tell them Special Olympics Texas gives you $500 to start. They just give you money. So it doesn't cost anything to get started. There's no reason to say no to this.
I love it. And just listening to you now, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I want to be back on a campus right now, because this is such a easy win for some kids that are often not included or not brought a part of everything. And so I love that you're sharing this.
And
Well,
also, I hate to interrupt. I don't want to
no.
interrupt you, but I also say, we've talked about staff, we've talked about students, but there are parents out there who are getting to come together and collaborate with each other, who may have students with the same disabilities, or maybe getting to collaborate with gen ed parents that they don't normally get to be with. It's really a community-wide stakeholder thing that you don't realize the impact until you're right in the middle of it.
I couldn't agree more. And I love that you're sharing this. And so, and shifting gears a little bit, I heard you say something a minute ago too that I was like, oh, I want to ask you about this. And that is, a common conversation piece in education right now, especially in leadership, is balance. That whole idea of, how do I not burn myself out while trying to be what everybody needs in this role? And I know it looks different for every leader and everybody out there. How do you maintain your sanity and your grip on things while still giving the people in your personal life the best parts of you too?
So, I mentioned about I'll never say no to an opportunity, but I'll rephrase that to, I'll never say no to the right opportunity. If I know that it's not for me, I've learned to say no to those things. I've learned to say no to extra things that will affect my family life, because at the end of the day, I want my family to get the best of me. So that for them to see the best version of me, I have to know how to say no to certain things. And there's a lot of things I want to do that might be right for me, but it's not right for my family. So that's where the balance is saying no, because, in these roles, you want to support everybody, and don't want to feel like you're letting people down, but I also don't want to let people down at home. People have told me all along that no one will ever remember how long you worked, but your family will remember how many times you weren't there.
Yep. And and I love that you said too that it's okay to turn down opportunities that aren't meant for you right now. And I think sometimes people are so afraid to turn those down because it's like, what if this doesn't happen again? well, if it's meant for you, it'll happen again. And so I love that advice. And so, Kevin, as we wrap up this conversation, I always love to end with the same thing. And that is, as people are listening today, they probably walked away with all kinds of different things. But if there was one thing you want to make sure they hear before they leave this conversation, what is your one thing for them?
So I don't know if it's one thing. The one thing for me was Unified Champions and Special Olympics. That was my one thing that I felt like was something that could make a difference. And I really wanted to push forward with that. For other people, it's something else. I try to tell teachers, other administrators, if you have an idea, throw it out there. If it's going to benefit any student in any demographic in any way, throw it out there and do it. Even if it's just you, other people will be attracted to that. And I just think we need to provide opportunities for kids that are not your traditional classroom opportunities.
Now, of course, before we leave, those who are just listening and not watching can't see this, but there is a giant chicken costume behind you, Kevin. Can you tell us a little bit about that before I close this out?
So, yeah, we'll slide so you can see a little bit more. So this is my emotional support chicken that I try to have with me. Anytime I do anything online, even in interviews, I do draw attention to it. I think sometimes it kind of makes it where it's a little less pressure for people interviewing when they're looking at me and a chicken. But it's just a fun thing that I like having in my office. Sometimes if students have to come to my office, it's also nice for them to see that it's not always serious all the time, that, we can have conversations with the chicken in the room.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for being a guest on our Tips to Talk podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode. We hope you join us next week for another all-new guest. Remember, you can check out all the past recordings on your favorite podcast station or YouTube. We hope to see you again next week.
Thanks, Todd.